Hey everyone, I just wanted to make a quick video. I am grading away and I get caught in the discussion board. I can be all over the place. One minute I'm commenting on your layout in your module 9, and then I'm back to module 2 and putting comments in and grading. And one of the things that surfaced as I've gone through the community and I'm back to grading, I'm getting ready to leave and I'm just going to go home and grade in the comfort of my own home. One of the things that has intrigued me that I wanted to make a quick video about is Module 8, and the discussion is on creativity. And a lot of you have posted really, really good articles. You've made a lot of good comments, and a lot of you have several good suggestions on how to basically develop this idea of creativity in your classroom. And I know with technology it seems easy, but on the whole, I feel like I hear teachers say, well, there's really not time. There's so much to do in the curriculum. I feel like I'm so pressured to make sure I'm doing this and this so that we're prepared for standardized testing, that even as early as kindergarten teachers tell me sometimes they feel stressed and even saddened by the fact that there's not a ton of time for creativity in the classroom. And I think that that's where you have to be creative yourself and think, how am I going to accomplish this, but also use higher order thinking and creativity. And I know there's not time for it every day, but there's definitely a way that with a tiny bit more not work so much, but maybe just doing things a little bit differently, there's time for it in the curriculum. Some of you have mentioned the idea of blogging and how blogging or even journaling and actually writing, I hate to say without technology, because obviously blogging, you're going to use a technological device, but I just got done reading a interesting article about how creativity and the mind work together, and there's actually more links to creativity when you actually pick up a pencil and you're actually writing, and how therapeutic that can be for individuals to actually journal using a paper pencil, paper pen. And we all know this, that writing and that type of function or cognition of putting stuff in the brain through writing is completely different than cognition from typing. I have one example. When I took my GRE exam, I completely studied in this giant book with paper and pencil, and then my assessment was completely in a computer form or computer mode several years ago. And I just kept thinking, man, my brain just doesn't work the same way. I felt like I knew all of this when I studied in a traditional method using paper and pencil, and then relaying that type of cognition or basically transmission of information into a computer setting was really difficult. So one of the things I recently read was the idea of how creativity can be ensued by using paper and pencil versus technology. So once again, knowing when technology has a time and place and when to use that. As a lot of you have talked about, that there's advantages and disadvantages of using technology, as I just stated. One of the things I think is interesting about creativity, I took a master's level class for talented and gifted, and we talked about the creative process. And what I see, even at this level, is everybody wants to judge what their output is, and they look at it against other people's output, and they go, "Oh my gosh, I really didn't know what I was doing because everyone else's work looked different than my work." And one of the things I really try to implore in my classes is this idea that just because your work doesn't look like someone else's work doesn't mean it's valid, it doesn't mean it's important, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't make sense to you. That's why most of the guidelines are very general in my courses, because I understand we're all coming from different backgrounds and we all need something different within this context of instructional technology. And so I allow you to kind of mold this into what you need it to be. But that creative process isn't something you can judge. There's a really good line. It comes from a book that was published in 2002, and it's called "Creativity is Forever." And it's a pretty popular book by Davidson and his studies in creativity. I even love the textbook and the way it's laid out in a kind of a different fashion. But the one thing that ensues from this topic is that you cannot judge and generate. Therefore, you can't judge what you're doing, what your output, what your thoughts and ideas are, and you can't generate good ideas at the same time, because you're constantly going, oh, maybe that's not good, or that's not what else is someone doing. is doing. So that's why sometimes the creative process isn't something that you can push onto people. It takes time. It takes time to brew, to think, to put into perspective, to link with other things that you know. And so that is what my contribution to this discussion board is. If you do want to use creative processes in your classroom, please encourage your students to do it freely, to not give them huge time constraints. I mean, obviously, we can't spend all year being creative on one project, but you could give them time to think and let it brew and stew within that context. I think that's really important. So, reminding them not to judge what they're doing, just generate a lot like that brainstorming or concept idea, map idea. Ideas that you can get students to kind of implore in your classroom when they're trying to be creative. And lastly, not putting the pressure on them for a time frame, but giving them some type of obviously constraint. And lastly, this idea that the creative process is one that's very hard to judge. If we all looked at the same painting, we all may have different feelings about it. And so a lot of times I will tell students, when you have a creative component in your assessments, which is a really good way for students to express themselves in other ways, I often say that you really cannot judge maybe the overall output, but you can judge different components. So, for instance, maybe they had to have 5 to 6 components in this creative process, and you can judge that to make sure it's present. But this overall idea, I think we do a really good job very early on squishing creativity and squishing imagination. In that book by Davidson, it's called Creativity is Forever. There's 2 pages of things that we've been told growing up. They're called idea squashers or imagination squashers that we tell students, and we probably do it without thinking, that really limit their idea or ability to think beyond who they are. And a perfect example is when you hear adults say, "Well, I've never been a good singer," or "I definitely am not an artist." You were told, you think that because you were told that. We aren't born with fear. We aren't born with that idea that I'm not creative, or I'm not this, or I'm not that. Someone's told you that, and you've probably believed it. It's kind of that idea, when I go to a park or something with my daughter, I tend to be the larger child in this instance, and I like to run around and try everything. Science City in Kansas City is one of my favorite places to go with my kids, for about 10 plus years, I guess, and I'm always trying it out. And if somebody had told me when I was there trying the giant hamster wheel, trying to turn on all the light bulbs, "You're too big for that," I probably would have gotten off and I would never do it again. Thank golly someone hasn't told me that, because it would have squashed my idea that I can try it and I can do it and I can succeed at it. So those are things I would also ask you in your vocabulary is, what are you saying? Maybe not what you're doing, but what are you saying to really ensure that there are creative processes going in your classroom? And again, I love this environment because I've seen so many good ideas that if you would take time to look back at Module 8 on creativity, I guarantee you'll find some ideas in how to integrate it into the curriculum and still stay ahead with assessments, and stay on track with some of your test prepping. So anyway, I wanted to leave you that tonight. I kind of got off on a little bit of a tangent, but I wanted to make you a quick video tonight with regard to Module 8 because it was on my mind, and I will go back to grading, and you have a great Monday, have a great election week, and I will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.